and I sort of said it already, but my full name, Siddhartha Pico Raghavan Iyer, 4 religious traditions are represented there because Pico is the name of a Catholic heretic in the Renaissance from Florence, and not every pair of Hindu parents would name their child after a Catholic heretic from the 15th century. So already they were, preparing me for, uh, yes, for many traditions. Only, exclusively. I mean, I've never been called by Siddharth. And again, that was the wisdom of parents, knowing I was born in England and I was probably going to grow up in the West. And if I'd been called Siddharth, especially in those days, we didn't see many Indians in England or the US, it would have been massacred in all kinds of ways. So they gave me this wonderful global name, which really left me at home everywhere, because whether I'm in Italy or Spain or many places, even Japan, everyone can spell it, everyone can pronounce it. It sounds friendly and non-threatening. So it served me well in the global century. Yes, I was never on that quest, and I was always more interested in uncovering my future than my past. Partly because my past seemed quite scattered. Even from the time I was 7 years old, as you say, all my roots were in India, but my schooling and my early years were in Britain, and my present past was in California. And I think India is the one place where I'm embarrassed to be something of a foreigner. In other words, I should know much more about it than I do. I don't speak a word, as you know, of any of the languages. And also, coming from New York City, which is a place full of sort of dynamism and movement and excitement, India seemed akin to New York City, whereas Japan seemed more or less the opposite. And on the surface, as you know, Japan couldn't be less like India and couldn't be less like New York City. When I was living in New York, or especially when I go back there, I find it's people from Mumbai who instantly hit the ground running, as if New York's just a suburb of Mumbai, because they're variations on the same thing. Whereas somebody from Kyoto is never going to hit the ground running in New York, which is a register of what a great distance there is. That's not the reason I chose it, but more that I felt that Japan was some secret home, and I needed to explore what that connection was. To some degree, I knew my connection with India already, but I didn't know, why does Japan feel so familiar when, as you say, I have no Japanese blood and no reason to feel so at home here, but I do. Oh, it's a pure love affair. That's right. I say it on the second page. My friend says you look like you're in love when I come down from it, and that's how every monk and nun I know describes the life like that. That is not a case, you couldn't reason them out of their calling. They fell in love with, however they choose to define it, God or truth or something, and then they gave their life to it the way one does marrying. And it was a very, very important thing for me to stress love again and again. When I stay in a little place called the Ranch House, the book that I see is called The Invitation to Love. St. Benedict, when setting up monasteries, said that they're schools of love. Um, when the prior who, when I first went there, wrote out a book, it's called Love on the Mountain. And actually, when the current prior, when I told him I was writing a book, he said, "Oh, well, it's going to be a love letter, isn't it?" And that's probably how he would write too about his life. It would be a love letter. So when I recorded the audiobook version of this, and so I had to hear every single word, I noticed that the 4 words that came up again and again were light, love, joy, and gold. And I thought, oh, that's pretty good. I'm glad if they're recurrent phrases, because that's very much the heart of my experience. But it was really important that love should be. And as I said, it's not unique to me. I think any book about that kind of life will always have that word at the center. And not just love in the sense of compassion and the love that you feel for and bring to your children, but love, sort of head over heels kind of love.